Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Thoughts. And today, Attack on Titan, episode whatever the hell, titled That Day. And, JoJo talks too much more like JoJo ain't got nothing to say. Mind blown. I could pretty much end the video here, honestly. I don't even know how. I said this on Twitter, and I'll say it again here. I have no idea how I'm going to tackle this, because like every 10 seconds there's something revealed in this episode. Okay, let's attempt to tackle this week's episode of Attack on Titan. We're going to do our best. Here we go. May I just say, off the top, a gigantic, huge kudos to not only Isayama, because, you know, man made the story, but to Wit, because this episode is this episode, I wish Game of Thrones took cues from this episode, because while some things, like, there's moments in the episode that I thought were sort of, like, of course, you know? Like, there's a couple, like, when we meet a couple characters, I'm like, oh, they look real familiar, and, of course, they end up, spoilers, becoming Titans. And they're the Titans that we've seen throughout the story, so I was like, oh shit, that's clever. And it's set up and pays off. So not only does it actually pay off certain story elements, it actually still managed to surprise me, like, and I'm sure people are gonna be like, well, friggin' duh. But when they introduced Dinah Fritz, I was like, oh, she's cute, I wonder whatever happened to her. And then when she gets turned into the Titan, and it's the smiling Titan, I just got chills saying that out loud. I was like, oh my god. And it was like, it blows my mind, because she has the line of like, Grisha, no matter what happens, I will find you and we'll be together again. And she did. Oh god, she did. And Eren killed her. Just, I can't, my mind. I wasn't kidding. I don't know where to tackle. Like, the notes I have for this are all over the map. I don't, like, because, like, I'd be seeing something and then something else would click and then I'd have to go back and it's just everything that you've questioned about this show. Well, I shouldn't say everything. A great deal of things that you have wondered and pondered about Attack on Titan. If you're an anime only like myself, a whole mountain of it is answered here. And on top of that, it's just a solid story of a man whose world falls apart, not just all at once, not just on that day. It can all be traced back to that day, but you just watch Grisha become, almost like to an extent, become everything that he hates. Like, and how, like Grisha, I almost wish this was 2 episodes, just to really, like, drag it out and make you feel for Grisha. Because Grisha as a kid, looking at his father like, you pathetic, like I can't believe you're pushing this on me, like after I lost my sister, you're gonna do this to me, like, come on, like, what? And then for him to turn around and do it to Zeke, which, by the way, I friggin' called. Points on the board for me, I got it. But, like, again, they actually paid it off. And the fact that even though, like, I called it, I was still like, oh, that's called payoff. And this episode does it extremely well. Payoff is the word of the day this week. I'm gonna try to kind of condense my thoughts a little bit. So let's start with let's just start with Grisha, because I just really want to talk about Grisha right now. Grisha Yeager might be the most depressing and just depressing character I can think of right now. Just the story of this man is really tragic. Like, he's probably the most tragic character on the show right now. Good lord. His world falls apart on the day when he wanted to do something nice for his sister. His sister gets eaten by dogs as a result of it. He grows up hating his parents because of it, because they turned their backs on him and, like, pretended like everything was fine, that they got to live in this shithole of a city. Pardon my French. And then he becomes a member of the Resistance, and it all comes back to misunderstanding, misinterpretation, and misinformation, anger and vengeance, and it's all human nature. And damn, Isayama, why you gotta do me like this? Why you gotta make it real? But then he finds happiness with Dinah, and he has a kid, and he's genuinely happy. But even he says, like, did I ever really see my son as my son, or just the hope of this resistance? Did I ever, like, and it's like, damn, Grisha. And then Grisha's own son betrays him to the people who he felt betrayed, like, that he felt wronged his entire people. And it all spirals. Everybody he knew gets turned into Titans, or killed in the case of what's his name? I can't even remember. Is it Grisha or something like that? Like, that dude's dead. And just his wife is turned into the Smiling Titan, who later eats his second wife. And his second son, is then forced to once again take up the mantle, something that I bet he didn't actually friggin' want, or I hope he didn't want. I hope Grisha learned his lesson, but honestly, I don't think he did. Maybe he just never learned his lesson with Zeke, and he's just passing it on to Eren. And oh my god, Grisha, man, just, what have you done? Grisha might very well be the catalyst for everything that's been going on. I mean, whether or not Grisha and all his shenanigans happened, right? Like, no matter what, that Marley, I believe is the name of the country, or whatever you want to call it, they were still gonna attack Paradise, whatever they called it, which is, I guess, where we're from, quote unquote, where our story has been taking place. They would have attacked anyway. So at least maybe this stuff with Grisha maybe gave them more of a fighting chance. I don't know, man. I'm so shell-shocked, but I couldn't imagine being a manga reader when this was happening. Like the sheer amount of chaos. I can't believe I have to wait a whole week to find out what happens next. I also quickly want to touch on the fact that this felt like it had a lot to say about modern society. I won't get too political here, because I hate when people bring politics into stuff like this. It's meant to be fun, and but at the same time, I do feel like Isayama is trying to make a statement, maybe not on politics per se. In fact, throw politics out the window, forget I even said it. It feels like Isayama has something to say about humanity. Like when we see like the Marlians, whatever you want to call them, just treating these people, who are just people, by the way, it was 80 years ago, treating the sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons and daughters of these people like they're the same monsters who did this, like who did what their ancestors did, like as if they had any control over that. I feel like that's something you still see now, and I feel like this sort of blind hatred is a very human trait, and it's sad and it's gross, but at the same time it speaks to the fact that even in the Marlians you have people like the Owl, right? Who, by the way, was a friggin' beast. He straight up tanks a tanker, if you know what I'm saying. But like, yeah, like it just the fact that you have these different sides. On both sides, you have good and bad, right? And that's just humans in general. And I don't know. I'm not as smart as Isayama, obviously. I'm not really, right? Or I'm not as eloquent, rather. And it doesn't, like, just this story, I feel like Attack on Titan went from a show that I considered all hype, but like not in a bad way, just pure unadulterated hype. And now I'm realizing it really has a lot that it's trying to say. And if I wasn't so shell-shocked, maybe I would have been actually able to talk about it, but I just can't wrap my head around this episode. I don't know what screenshots I'm going to use for this video. They might just be random, because there's so many friggin' shots in this episode that I just loved. I thought art direction's on point, music's on point, acting is so on point, direction incredibly on point. I do think it was not even rushed, but I just wish we had more of it. You know, I wish like it was like sort of staggered out. But that's just a personal thing. That's not even a real complaint. I just kind of wish. I mean, we are getting more of Grisha next week, and we're getting some sort of trial next week, I guess, because of the insubordination. Man, Eren, dude, I don't know what you're gonna do, but hot damn, this is a whole other can of worms I did not expect to have opened. I'm curious though. Manga readers, try not to spoil things, but more so for you anime onlys like myself. Where do you stand? Because to me, I'm a very Professor Charles Xavier type of guy, and if I may quote my boy Xavier, or rather not quote, but paraphrase all I could think of while watching Grisha was vengeance will not bring you peace. And the whole time I'm like, Grisha, take your family, take your people, and go find something better. Because your ancestors fought a war, and it ended in nothing but tragedy. You don't want another one. And that's not what happened. But all I can think of, I think that's going to be like the description for this week's episode. Just vengeance will not bring you peace. Just, what a friggin' phenomenal episode. I must sound like a loon or just like a total joke because I'm so like wowed by this episode, but it really, I don't know. I got nothing to say. JoJo Talks Too Much finally has nothing to say. I bet a lot of people are happy to hear that. With that said, everybody, if I had to give this episode an overall rating, you already know what it is. This episode is getting a grade of A freaking plus. Phenomenal. I have no idea where the show's going from here, but I am so excited for next week. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, I'm not sure how you could have, considering how rambly this was, but if you did enjoy today's video, then by all means, hitting that like button and sharing that video around on the internet, that would be super rad of you. And if you would like to stick around and check out more from me, then by all means, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to join the good ones. And as always, I have to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Dominic, Urza, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Omner Garamond, Opinionated Slime, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Tristan, and Verdon. Thank you all so much for your continued support. I promise to attempt to be more cohesive next week. I think maybe I'll be more prepared for what's gonna happen. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, until our next meeting, stay rad and don't scary.